Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Sunday, September 25th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Rutgers game is in 6 days. The game against Michigan in 62 days. The Wisconsin game is in -1 day, and boy, it was quite a show for the Ohio State offense, the Ohio State defense. Not much of a show for Wisconsin. I'm joined by Kevin Noon here in the press box at Ohio Stadium to recap the Buckeyes' 52-21 win over the Badgers. Kevin, I think to me the thing that was maybe the most surprising was how quickly this was just. It felt like 5 minutes in the game, it was like, oh, this is over already.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the Ohio State offense, it took them a long time until they had to punt. I mean, it was even if Wisconsin would have been able to do things on offense, which it wasn't, they had no answer for Ohio State on defense. With what the Buckeyes were able to do with their offense. I mean, C.J. Stroud was sharp, came out 8 for 8, 9 for 9, something to start the game. Everything that the Buckeyes wanted was there. I mean, we talked so much about this Jim Leonard led defense, and it just didn't materialize on Saturday night at Ohio Stadium. The Buckeyes just seemed to have everything schemed so well, and then on the other side of the ball, I mean, we got the availability report. There were a lot of names there. More names that were not on the report were not going for the game either. And yes, Wisconsin did put up 21 points, but a lot of their success happened against 2s and 3s. So I mean, it was. While I won't say it was 100%, an A+ effort. I mean, it was a solid A for a lot of things that I saw.
Yeah, it was when you grade on the curve of, so they were playing without their 2 starting cornerbacks, and they were playing without Latham Ransom, who's certainly in that mix at safety, and no Jackson Smith and Jigba. It just kind of kept on rolling. They didn't miss a beat, and this is not a terrible team to play without your 2 starting cornerbacks. This is, Graham Mertz and that passing attack is not going to threaten anyone, really. But still, you had a true freshman in Jair Brown, a redshirt freshman in J.K. Johnson, and they were both solid. There was, one long pass completed on J.K. Johnson. And Jair Brown, I think, got a pass interference call at one point, but it was like, that was kind of it. And Wisconsin was not able to consistently run the ball. That you mentioned, they ended up with 21 points, and they ended up with Braylon Allen ended up with 165 yards rushing. But a lot of that was in that fourth quarter when Ohio State was up 28-0. Ohio State was up 31-7. It was the game was functionally over by the time a lot of those yards came. Again, this is not an incredible Wisconsin offense by any means, but this is just, this is another week of the Ohio State defense doing what the Ohio State defense was supposed to do, which, after the last couple of years, that's like, oh, look at that. They're doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, we know that there's, the potential for some explosive plays against the Jim Knowles type of defense. We've talked about 5, but really we wanted to be 3. There were a couple of big plays that happened. I mean, it's just going to happen. The other team has helmets and shoulder pads and scholarships too, and it's just kind of how it works. And if not for a loss to Wazoo, I mean, this could have been a battle of top 10 teams. And much like we saw in terms of a battle of top 5 teams with Ohio State and Notre Dame. Ohio State just how far is the chasm between the top 3 teams in the nation and then the next cut? And coming out of this game, I don't know if Wisconsin is in that second cut. That there they may be in the long rough, the tall grass. I mean, they just may be part of the ensemble because I don't know. I mean, we sit there and we look at the Big Ten West. I mean, one thing that I take out of this is I think Minnesota is going to be the team to beat out there.
Yeah, I am not walking away from that game on Saturday night thinking, I bet we see this Wisconsin team again in Indianapolis. I bet we don't see this Wisconsin team in Indianapolis in early December. It's starting to look like you might see Ohio State in Indianapolis in early December because they are just sort of handling their business. There's nothing, there was nothing incredible about the game tonight. There was, the long run was 25 yards. After that, it was 16 yards. The long, they had a 33-yard pass, a 31-yard pass, 22-yard pass. It wasn't, you didn't have a bunch of 98-yard touchdown passes. You didn't have, they didn't force 7 turnovers. They didn't have 12 sacks. It wasn't, there was nothing that was like, wow, I can't believe they fill in the blank. It was just ruthlessly efficient. Just the first 4 drives, touchdown, 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 touchdown. At that point, it's 28-0, and it's like, well, what else is on TV?
They were a perfect scoring machine. That's, they just did what they needed to do there. There wasn't, there were certainly some great catches. There were some great moments that we saw in the game, but there wasn't necessarily anything that you're just going to walk out of there and be like, you know what, I really remember this. There wasn't Evan Spencer throwing the ball to Michael Thomas or something like that. There wasn't a Joey Bosa scoop and score. But, it was just a thorough, dominating, convincing win, and there will still be the critics who will be like, well, Wisconsin just really wasn't all that good, and on to the next one, and then Ohio State plays Rutgers, who got shellacked by Iowa, and Ohio State's just going to have to be there at the end, left standing with a 0 in the loss column. And honestly, with where college football is now, I think even a 1 would be okay, as long as it's the right one. But they're doing just fine. They're doing what they need to do. Ryan Day is saying all the right things in the post game in terms of where the team is at. He was asked about injuries and that they Jackson just wasn't able to go. They're hoping to come Tuesday in practice to start seeing what he's capable of doing and go from there. I'd honestly be surprised if we saw him against Rutgers personally. I watched him running around a little bit on the sideline, kind of hamming it up. He looked fine with there, and then all of a sudden he reached back to his left hamstring. So maybe a little validity to the rumor about a hamstring, and now we know which side left.
Yeah. Yeah, he I think what was maybe most interesting to me was this isn't, the first game of the year against Notre Dame, which, everyone now is, anyone outside of Columbus or outside the Big Ten footprint can't wait to tell you that actually, sir, Notre Dame is not that good this year. It's like, yeah, everyone saw. Yes, they lost to Marshall. Everyone saw. But Ohio State didn't look great against Notre Dame, and part of that was probably the fact that you didn't have Jackson Smith-Njigba, and
Julian Fleming.
You didn't have Julian Fleming, and they were not planning on not having Jackson Smith-Njigba. He got hurt during the game. They've just sort of adjusted to life without Jackson Smith-Njigba now, and I think a big part of that is the play of Cade Stover. And Tony Garderman and I have joked for years that it is the year of the tight end. It actually feels like this might be the year of the tight end at Ohio State, where Ryan Day has talked about the fact that they need the tight end in order to do what they want to do in the run game, but now that's like Cade Stover's playing a significant role in the pass game, and he's you're talking about how many memorable plays there were or weren't in the game. Like all of Cade Stover's catches were like, remember, and a lot of it was because he ended up upside down in midair on several of them, but had a couple touchdown catches. He is turning into like a legitimate piece of this offense.
What ends up signifying the year of the tight end? Is it 35 receptions and 5 touchdowns? Is that the year of the tight end? Based on Ohio State's numbers, it might be.
Yeah, it's because he had 2 touchdowns on Saturday night.
Should have had a third.
There was another one that he had his hand on the ball in the end zone. It just was a little overthrown, but yeah, he's not going to break Terry Glenn's or Jackson Smith-Njigba's any of his receiving marks from last year, but this is as relevant as a tight end has been in the Ohio State offense since Jeremy Ruckert had times when he did it. They had the Sugar Bowl against Clemson where they had 3 touchdowns for the tight ends. But in terms of like a season-long thing, maybe Ben Hartsock, maybe even before that to Ricky Dudley. You can't really go back and go, here are all these years that like Jeff Hireman made plays, but it wasn't like a consistent thing throughout the. And that's kind of how it is with a lot of these guys. Nick Vannett made some big plays, but it wasn't a consistent thing.
Marcus was on the receiving end of the touchdown against Penn State on the big comeback.
Yeah, but it's like it's moments. It's not like consistent, lots and lots and lots. This has been a little bit of a revelation for this team, and which is, you can't help but feel good for Cade Stover, who just was kind of like bouncing around the team, just from room to room. Will someone please adopt me? Will someone please take me in and give me my forever home? He has his forever home now, it feels like.
And I had a chance to talk to Cade Stover in the post-game, Ohio State post-game room, and he took a pretty nasty spill on the field and was down on the field for a minute, and he was saying, that he was getting angry that people were like doting over him or whatever. He's like, I'm fine. So, that's just kind of the blue collar farm kid mentality that he has that you just have to love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think C.J. Stroud loves having him there as a big target. It creates a mismatch. It gives the defense one more thing to worry about, and they have plenty of things to worry about because Emeka Egbuka, another big day, 6 catches, 118 yards, a pair of touchdowns for him. Julian Fleming, another week with a touchdown for him. Two weeks in a row now with touchdowns for Julian Fleming. 4 for 67 and a touchdown for him. 4 catches, 51 yards for Cade Stover. Marvin Harrison Jr., who, I think a couple weeks ago we were about ready to, crown the next big thing and forever going to be incredible, had a relatively quiet night. Now, he had some, he missed some time at one point during the game. Nothing serious, I don't think. They did it without Julian. They did it without Jackson Smith-Njigba. They did it kind of without Marvin Harrison Jr. for long stretches, and it just keeps rolling. And the running game keeps rolling too, and they had a 100-yard game from Travion Henderson. They had a 100-yard game from Mayan Williams, and everything. Even when this is a game where C.J. Stroud, you look at C.J. Stroud's numbers, and it's like for C.J. Stroud, those are pretty pedestrian numbers. It's all just kind of working right now, where it doesn't have to be perfect. If everything's just kind of okay, they're just rolling right now.
Ho hum, another 5-touchdown game. I remember when Ohio State started having some 5-touchdown games, and it was stop the presses. This is the second time in school history or whatever, and now we can even sit there with a straight face and say, ho hum, C.J. Stroud's numbers. But that's kind of where this offense has been under Ryan Day, either as OC or as head coach. I mean, just with the line of quarterbacks. I go back to my time at Ohio State. I mean, I don't know if I'd go a month seeing 5 touchdown passes. I mean, it's just a real different world.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, you have guys. Tommy Eichenberg is starting to put up numbers that are like the numbers that guys put up way back when you were in school. You had to wander around the dinosaurs on the way to the stadium, but once you got there, it was like, wow, middle linebackers putting up 14 tackles a game, and you haven't seen that at Ohio State with any consistency for a long time. And he had 14 tackles against Wisconsin, and he's someone who has become a very dynamic player. I talked with Justin Whitlatch on the post-game show after you can find that on youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. But I talked to Justin about, is this a function of Tommy Eichenberg being such a dynamic player and just a ball hawk, or was this a function of Jim Knowles' defense sort of steering things towards the linebackers, and it's designed for the linemen to eat the blocks and give the linebackers a free hit. It was like a little from column A and a little from column B, but the defense steering guys to the linebacker still has to get the guy on the ground. The linebacker still has to track the guy down in space. He's doing all that. He has been really impressive to me. The other thing that was really impressive to me, I mean, let's talk for a moment about the 3 young defensive backs who we saw very, very early in the game. Jair Brown and J.K. Johnson started at corner, but Sonny Styles was out there real early, and this is someone who should still be in high school, and he had a penalty at one point and then kind of got pulled off the field after that, but boy, he's playing ahead of some guys who have been on campus for several years. They have talked, no one wants to put too much on him, but it's like the way they talk about him, it's not a complete shock to see him out there, but still, it's kind of a shock to see him out there when you think about he should be playing on a Friday night and going to like a homecoming dance, and it's like, no, he's playing on a Saturday night and playing in the first quarter against, not Arkansas State, but Wisconsin.
Well, I want to comment about the dinosaur comment. When I call Mr. Slade at the quarry and tell him I was going to be late and Wilma and I would get here to watch the games, absolutely there. But, Yeah, I mean, I think, starting with J.K. and with Jair, I mean, yes, Graham Mertz was not going to be the quarterback that would test them. This was not going to be Maryland. This was not going to be Michigan in terms of what the passing offense could be. But, still being thrust out in that type of situation, there had to be a lot of nerves there. Ryan Day said that both of them practiced really hard through the fall, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this week they both had good weeks of practice. It meant a lot. And then the Sonny Styles, yeah, I mean, I was kind of shocked when he was out there. And pro tip, these black jerseys, it's kind of hard to pick up the numbers on TV, in the press box. So at some point, someone on the Huddle message board was talking about Sonny Styles being out there. And I'm like, oh, they've got to be wrong. That's 30, not 20. That's Cody Simon. Lo and behold, it was Sonny Styles.
Yeah, that is remarkable to have him out there that early in that kind of game. And I mean, you'll see where it goes. It feels like we'll probably see more of him next week against Rutgers. That's a game where you're probably going to see more of the young guys. You might see some of the older guys who are maybe a little questionable and are they held out Denzel Burke, they held out Cam Brown, they held out Lathan Ransom, they held out Jackson Smith and Jigba, and on and on and on. You might see some of those guys sit out another week because there's no need to rush back for a Rutgers game. But the young talent it's there, and this is not this is a point in the schedule where it's okay. You can sort of gently sort of slide them in the side door, and it's not going to be a huge stress. You're not playing Georgia just yet, but
Right.
It's starting to look like this team might play Georgia at some point because they are taking care of business so far. 4 weeks into the season. It's only 4 weeks in the season, but yet we're a third of the way through the regular season already. So if you that's going to do it for us right now. But if you want to hear a lot more about our thoughts on Ohio State and Wisconsin, as well as Justin Whitlatch, one of our X's and O's guys from BuckeyeHuddle.com, as well as post-game interviews with Wisconsin coach Paul Chryst, Ohio State coach Ryan Day, C.J. Stroud, a whole bunch of the Buckeyes. You can find all of that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We did a full, pretty much 2-hour post-game show, all in one feed. It includes a brand new episode of the Buckeye Weekly podcast with Tony Gerderman and I doing our instant reaction show after the game. So you're going to want to check that out. That is always a lot of fun, and you're going to want to make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Also ring that bell so you get notified when we do our live pregame shows, live postgame shows, because those are always a lot of fun, and even more fun when you guys are there to keep the conversation going and ask us questions and point stuff out that we might have missed. So that's always fun. And another fun place to follow this Ohio State football team is at BuckeyeHuddle.com. It is a really fun, active community. We didn't even talk about the recruiting piece of things tonight, but there was some very big names in town for Ohio State on the recruiting front. Mark Givler, Alex Gleitman will have that covered at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And then, of course, we got our X's and O's guys, Devin Radcliffe, Justin Whitlatch, Ross Fulton. Really, really insightful, analytical content covering, making you a smarter football fan, telling you what you saw, even if you didn't realize what you saw, making sure, you really understand what you saw, what it all means. That's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.